John 4:45. Cum ergo venisset in Galileam, exceperunt eum Galilaei, cum omnia vidissent quae fecerat Hierosolimis in die festo, et ipsi enim venerant in diem festum. When therefore he had come into Galilee, the Galileans received him when they had seen all the things which he had done at Jerusalem at the festival. For they also themselves had come to the festival. Lots of interesting things to discuss here, but we'll try and keep things concise. Here now, John is continuing to tell us about Jesus' reception back in Galilee and the impact of his ministry in Judea on his reception in Galilee. And we begin with this cum clause. And it's a cum clause just like the one we saw in the last verse, where cum is indicating the circumstances under which something happened rather than the exact explicit time when they occurred. And for that reason, it's followed by the subjunctive. Here, the pluperfect subjunctive, third person singular, active. And the reason it's pluperfect is because in the main clause, we have a perfect tense verb, and our author means to indicate that before even the action of the main verb, this other action in the subordinate clause had occurred already. That's what the pluperfect subjunctive does when it's following a historical tense. You can consult your grammar for what is called the sequence of tenses. That's what I'm referring to here. I won't go through it all right at the moment, but this is a good occasion, if you haven't yet done so, to review how all of that works. It's necessary to understand those temporal relationships, those relative temporal relationships, if you're going to try and piece together the temporal sequence of events in a Latin text that you're reading. Or if you're expressing yourself in Latin, in writing or in speech, you need to be able to think through relatively quickly how to express the relative time at which things happened in a subordinate clause compared to those main actions that you're describing in the main clause. So this is worth knowing. It takes some time usually for Latin students to master, so don't fret if it's a little bit rusty for you or if it's something that you have to return to a few times. That's perfectly normal. Okay, so therefore, when he, and this of course is Jesus here that we're describing, when Jesus had come into Galilee, into the region of Galilee, the Galileans, Galilei, exceperunt. They received him. This is translating here Greek edexanta. They received him. They took him to themselves, or welcomed him, we might say, as many English translations do. They received or welcomed him. And then here we get another cum clause indicating something that has already happened previously to their welcoming him. So again, syntactically, this is more or less equivalent to our first cum clause here, this circumstantial cum, again, followed by a pluperfect subjunctive. And then within that, we get a relative clause, those things which he had done. So here's another thing that is a condition that obtained when exceperunt took place. They had seen already at that point all of the things, omnia, neuter plural here, direct object of vidissent. They had seen all the things, those things which Jesus had done, pluperfect indicative from facio facere, at Jerusalem, Hierosolimis. This is a locative, in case that was a little bit confusing. In die festo, on the solemn day of the festival, that is the Passover. Okay, so again, we've got just a cum clause explaining the circumstances which were important at the time beforehand relative to what happens in the main clause. Then we've got to add for. Remember, for is an explaining word. For they themselves, that is the Galilei, also, et, here functioning that way, had come, third person plural, pluperfect, active indicative, they had come. Now here, we might be tempted to translate into the festal day into the high holiday. But really, probably it's better to use an English phrase indicating place rather than time for this. To the festival. I mean, really, the word festival in English indicates usually a particular spot where a celebration is being held, as well as a time when it's being held. Both of those are kind of wrapped up into one. We think of a celebration happening at a particular spot. So they had come to the festival. Why do we actually have in plus accusative here when it doesn't seem really to make any sense that they should go into the festival? It might be the spatial notion connected to this idea that I was just talking about. On a more immediate level, this is just actually translating the Greek construction, which uses ace, preposition ace plus accusative. In any case, it's a long sentence with several subordinate clauses, but if we take it step by step and think about how all these things relate to each other, especially in chronological sequence, we can unfold it in a way that makes sense.